Hi, my name is Kevin Applenab with Americans for Comprehensive Education Reform. I'm here with Joel Ford, former three-term senator in the North Carolina Senate, and local entrepreneur, business owner, and started the Center for Employment Services with the Charlotte Housing Authority, and passionate about school choice and education and all things related to uplifting our students. So I guess talk about a little bit about just your experience with education in the North Carolina Senate and General Assembly at large.
Well, I am a product of our public school system. I went through the Gaston County public school system and then went on to the University of North Carolina, A&T in Greensboro. So my personal experience has been with the public K through 12 system and the public university system. Was fortunate enough to get elected in 2012 to the North Carolina General Assembly, to the North Carolina Senate, representing District 38 at the time, which is the Northwest and Southwest Charlotte-Mecklenburg. My wife and I, we've been married for 19 years, and congratulations and
happy anniversary today.
Thank you very much. Happy anniversary to my lovely wife and supportive wife, who has been steady and a commitment for me throughout all of these entrepreneurial as well as my political pursuits. We have a daughter who has gone through Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system through their K through, she's now in the 9th grade. She is a freshman in high school here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system. So one of the things that helped open my eyes to school choice was, one, my personal experience and my family's experience with Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, but then also to going to Raleigh, our state's capital, and listening to different perspectives on education, whether that's vouchers, public charter schools, public schools, and of course even private schools. And so just listening to administrators, educators, as well as parents about their different educational experiences in the state of North Carolina helped me get to this particular point where I could support school choice.
Okay. In terms of improving our public school systems, what efforts did you see while you were in the General Assembly? What efforts were you part of, and what sorts of solutions kind of jumped out at you as being kind of the most optimal for our state?
Well, the biggest one since 2000 and I would say 2010, 2012 up into 2019, 2020 has been teacher pay. And so I was fortunate enough to be a part of several budgets. I think I want to say 6 budgets that actually increased teacher pay. Teacher pay, in my opinion, is just one aspect of our public educational system. There's another component where it has to do with public safety within our schools as well as academic performance. And listening to parents, I discovered that the public school may not always be the best fit for families. And so that got me to thinking and doing some research about how can we empower families and what can we do to make sure that they have the best public educational experience that they can have for their child.
Okay. Given that sometimes the majority, or I don't want to jump out without the statistics, but a decent amount of our underperforming schools find themselves in the inner city servicing minorities. That the Democrat Party, which you're a part of, tends to be the party that tries to brand itself as being the party for that demographic. Yet they also seem to be the party, just speaking in broad terms, that seems to be in opposition to school choice and charters, and it seems sort of contradictory. I guess speak a little to that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that I did when I got to the North Carolina General Assembly was to work with our staff in Raleigh, as well as work locally with the administrators here at Charlotte-Mecklenburg school systems. And so what I discovered was in my district, Senate District 38, the majority, if not all of my schools that were in Senate District 38, even to this day, are either underperforming or failing. And so as a representative and that was duly elected by the people, I wanted to try and help improve that, right? So one of the first things that I did was I contacted my local school board chair and representatives to see what they needed to help improve the public school system. Just like this, there were silence. And maybe that they'd never heard or had anybody come and approach them with that, but that's what I got. I didn't get any recommendations or solutions. And so the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school systems, to their fairness, has a government relations department that push forth initiatives for the state legislature to help them with the business of public education. None of those initiatives during my time as a state senator improved any of the failing or underperforming schools. So listening to the frustration of parents, listening to the frustration of educators and administrators, I started to look at different opportunities and different ways to help families improve their education. What brought me to this point was time, research, and listening to parents and to educators and to elected officials about our public educational system. And what I came to the conclusion of is that as an elected official, I do not believe that we should be as concerned about the administration of education, but rather leave that to the experts, but empower families to make the best decisions for themselves. And where I'm going with this is that we should have a common goal of holding every level of education accountable for outcomes. So whether you're in the public school system, public charter, voucher system, or even in the private schools, our state constitution says that when a kid graduates from the state of North Carolina's educational system, they should be one of two things. They should either be career ready or college ready. Well, unfortunately, too many kids in the west side of Charlotte-Mecklenburg or even in the east side of Charlotte-Mecklenburg are not prepared for either one. And so they're not prepared for a job or career, and they're not prepared to go to college.
I'm assuming that's true statewide then too in a lot of our cities.
That is true statewide for a lot of our cities. But where I was going to go with this is that you don't have to believe me. And one of the little unknown facts is go to your local community college and check out the remediation rate for kids entering into our community college. Here in the city of Charlotte, it is abnormally high for remediation. So what that tells me is that as a taxpayer, we're paying twice for the same education. So CMS is pushing kids through, and then once the light bulb goes off and they decide they either want to go to community college or go somewhere else, they're not prepared to do so. We have some challenges in our schools. We have some challenges with the administration of education, and I do believe that as a community and those who are elected, we should empower our administrators and teachers with resources. But I also believe that we need to hold them accountable for outcomes.
What do you think internally, systemically, inside the Department of Public Instruction or CMS as an example, but what do you think are the obstacles to achieving this sort of reform you just kind of championed or described or encouraged?
I think anytime you want to reform or to change systemic systems, there are traditions and there are methodologies and ways which people have been doing business for decades. And I think our public school system on the state level and on the local level are no different. Instead of trying to fight that, I think that we should empower families with choice. And so I can't tell, and I often said this, I refuse to look a single mother of 4 in her eyes and tell her that her only option is her neighborhood failing school, but rather empower her with choices or options about what's best to educate her child. And I've seen it work. And so a lot of people would say, well, you know, the charter schools are not doing any better than our public schools. And I would beg to differ in that we have some challenged charter schools and we have some challenged public schools. But one of the major differences in the state of North Carolina is we will close a failing charter school. Very rarely, if ever, will we close a public school.
That's so. If I'm hearing this, I don't want to put words in your mouth to paraphrase, but you're endorsing to an extent, perhaps somewhat a quasi-free market system for education, allowing parents to choose, which would then potentially encourage charters to compete for those tuition dollars, and might also indirectly create an environment where public schools now have to innovate and compete and improve to again attract those students back, to win those students back to their systems, so to speak. I mean, you said you can't force a system to change by confronting it, but can you alter the environment where the system will have to change itself to compete and survive? I mean, is that a viable?
I think it is a viable alternative, and I think it's a viable option, but before we go any further, I want to be clear. I'm all into the public school system as a personal family, right? My daughter is in a public high school in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and so I am on the PTA, and I'm also on the local booster club. But that works for my family. I don't know what's going to work for your family. And so it's amazing to me how we can have a choice in our cell phone carriers, we can have a choice in the car that we drive, we can even have a choice in the hamburger that we want to have. But when it comes to public school, when it comes to education, we have a group of people who seems to think that one size fits all. And I'm saying to you that it doesn't. And so another myth that I want to deal with is that charter schools are taking money away from the public schools. That's simply not true. The money follows the child. So let me ask you this question. So what about all those families who homeschool their children? Are they getting refunds? No. So we have to figure out as a community what's best for families rather than prioritizing systems.
Talk a little bit about outcomes. You mentioned holding accountable for outcomes, right? But then we see situations, as you alluded to, with the remediation rate of the community colleges where you get the sense that some kids were just kind of pushed through because graduation rates, matriculation rates, and retention rates are part of the outcomes that they're all held responsible for. Is it wise to put control over the outcomes that they're being judged by in the hands of the people being judged, I guess, to put it that way? Or are we looking at the right outcomes as well? I mean,
I do believe that our framers of our state constitution had it correctly when we're looking for our kids when they graduate our schools to be either college ready or career ready. And so we have a system now where our public schools are able to just pass kids along. And I think that a noble thing was tried to be achieved in two efforts. One, when we mandated that a child should be able to read by third grade. We all know what happens when a child can't read by third grade. Bad things happen. Unfortunately, and I know from personal experience, because I know...
Just to clarify, when you say bad things happen, is there any truth to what I've heard that they kind of project ahead and plan prison space according to literacy rates of third graders?
That's one of the things that I've heard as it relates to literacy rate of third graders. Yes, so they are calculating and planning accordingly. And so it's amazing that we're doing that here in America, but that's our reality. But going back to right now, I'm aware that on the west side of the city of Charlotte, because there are after-school programs to help kids with reading and with academic performance, that you have 4th and 5th graders that cannot read. Or you'll have a 4th and a 5th grader that is not on grade level. And so my perspective is this. Yes, the family has a role and a responsibility to play, but so does our school system. And so I'm not going to absolve a family. I don't know the family dynamics, but this is what I do know. We have over 4,000 homeless kids who attend Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. One of the things that frustrates me the most is with the limited resources that we have in our city and county, why would we not prioritize those families, right? So again, I've often asked this question publicly. As a community, are we sending Charlotte-Mecklenburg the best students that we can that are ready to learn? And when I ask that question in a rhetorical way, there's silence in the room. And I would argue and I would come back and say, no, that we're not. We could do a lot more. We could do a lot more with our economy. Poverty has wreaked havoc in our public school systems. And so while the city and the county are not directly responsible for education, they are responsible for our environment and for the economy as it relates to creating an environment that's conducive for parents to earn a higher wage, including our state government. It seems like we're so busy fighting over the administration of education rather than empowering families, making sure that families are resourced so that we can send them the best kid that's ready to learn. And so we have a lot of work to do still, but I do believe we need to make sure that families on all levels, east, west, north, and south, are empowered to make the best educational system for their kids.
Okay. If you had a magic wand you could wave, fix a couple of things. I mean, I don't want to say three. I don't want to say one. I don't want to say two. But if you could identify those primary pieces that you saw both in the legislature and working in the community that you could fix from a I guess a systemic standpoint within education, whether it be the public schools themselves or the charters, which are kind of ancillary to public schools, but part of the public school system, in terms of opposition within the legislature or differing opinions, process blockage that you saw in the communication there, or just in general, broadly, what would that look like?
One of the things that I tried to do when I was in the legislature was to take away the excuses, right? Take away the objections, take away the hot topics. So if we could increase teacher pay for our starting teachers, right? And increase teacher pay to get the state of North Carolina, let's say, in the top 15 or maybe even the top 10 in the country. And there are a lot of different dynamics, right? So we should not, based upon the economies of California and New York, we can't compete with that because we have a different economy. But teacher pay seems to be this major obstacle or hurdle. So if I had a magic wand, I would fix teacher pay so that we are competitive in the country and take that objection off the table, which when I talk to teachers, teacher pay is not the number one issue that comes up. And I don't know why the media or the administrators or school board members will not be honest with the public. But classroom safety, right? A leader or a principal who is supportive of them in an environment where they are able to teach. Money is important. Health benefits are important. But you don't go into education for the money. You go in for the love of educating and helping shape minds. And that's what I would want to empower those good teachers. And then the other thing is, right now, in Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system and in the state of North Carolina, to my knowledge, it takes 2 years of documentation to get rid of a bad teacher. It takes 2 years. So you mean to tell me that a kid has to sit through 2 years worth of bad instruction and a bad teacher in order for us to be able to get rid of them? We need to clean up the educational system, empower those teachers who want to teach, and make sure that we are preparing our students to be prepared to learn.
All right. Do we have any questions from Facebook? That's not well, it's early. All right. Well, those of you watching this, I guess after the fact, put your questions in the comment section. I'm going to tag Joel Ford, so he'll be checking it out and he can provide an answer. We're also going to put it up on our YouTube channel. So again, thank you very much for your time here today. I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
Thank you.